Well, if you look at the cultures around the world where people are living the longest, it's never because individuals are trying to do it. They're not bucking up with discipline or getting on a special diet or forcing themselves to exercise. It's always because longevity happens to them. They live in a culture that nudges them to do the right things, makes the right decisions for them. So the central idea here is, the biggest secret is shifting the focus either for individuals or for communities away from individual behavior and optimizing an environment where the active and healthy choice are easy and indeed sometimes unavoidable. And I know that's not as sexy, but we're doing this in 23 cities, 23 entire cities who adopted a Blue Zone template. And it's impossible to convince 7 million people to eat the right food, but if you set up the environment where the right food's easier to get and cheaper, you get the result you want. When it comes to anti-aging, there is absolutely no way to, this is going to be bad news, there's no way to reverse the aging process. There's no way to stop the aging process. There's no way to even slow down the aging process. So the technical definition of aging is the buildup of cellular and molecular damage over time. And every 7 years, almost all of the cells in your body replace themselves. So they duplicate. And every time they duplicate themselves, the amount of molecular damage doubles. So there's always some little genetic misinformation. And when your cells reproduce themselves, they double. So between the ages of 12 and say 64, your cells have doubled 8 times, which occasions about 160 times more damage. So not only are you getting older, you're aging faster, and aging faster exponentially. So there's no way to stop that train. But the average American could live between 10 and 14 extra years by optimizing their lifestyle or the environment they live in. The average American should be living about a decade longer, 11 or 12 years actually longer than we are, if we lived in places where our lifestyles were optimized. Theoretically, yes. First of all, the good news is that most blue zones are sunny. And I think having good access to the outdoors and access to quality sunshine for the right amount of time, favors vitamin D. And vitamin D for sure figures into healthy aging. I look at places like, I'm going to say it's St. Armitage Circle.
St. Armand's.
Armand's Circle. That is a phenomenal example of blue zone design. It's easy to walk there. It's easy to socialize. There's good access to healthy. Unfortunately, most of Florida is not designed that way. I think this state is probably designed with the automobile, at least roads are designed with the automobile in mind. And you look at blue zones and every trip to a friend's house or out to eat or to work or to school occasions a walk. And that's more important, I think, than having really good gyms and et cetera. In Sardinia, we found that one of the 4 things that most highly correlated with reaching age 100 was how long your walk to work was. So the longer the walk to work. So I would say there's plus and minus. It has the capacity of being a blue zones, but it could use some work. Naples, in fact, has embraced this blue zone citywide template, and we have a whole team of people working down there to make Naples a blue zone. I've interviewed about 350 centenarians, and you can't help but adjust your lifestyle when you learn from them. I do yoga. I eat mostly a plant-based diet. I reconnected with my religion. It's really hard to get me to work beyond 5 o'clock at night or even 4. I spend a lot more time with my family. Pretty clear on my sense of purpose. These are all things that you see really highly correlate to longevity.
I have a question. So, in your research, would you say that citizens who live the longest also have the highest quality of life? Is there a correlation between that?
Yes, there's about an 80% correlation. So if you can manage to live a life where, well, just to put a word on it, if you're happy, if you're in that top quintile of happiness or well-being, it adds about 8 years of life expectancy over being in the lowest quintile. I have a new book coming out on April 5th called The Blue Zone Solution. And what we tried to do there actually is, well, what we did, I hired 3 graduate students and we found 155 dietary surveys in all 5 blue zones, and we distilled them down. We did what's called a meta-analysis to find out exactly what centenarians eat to live to be 100. And we trying to dispel a lot of the myths. And then the second half of the book talks about how, once you know these things, how do you put them in your life for the long term? Because when it comes to longevity, there's no short-term fix.